Everyone, welcome to Introduction to Psychology, Module 3. My name is Feishayo Olufunke Oyewole. I am pursuing my RN to BSN degree in Aspen University. This is my third week in this course, and my instructor name is Dr. Ellen Livingstone, and my instructor email address is ellenlivingstone@aspen.edu. This week, we are focusing on gender psychology, sensation, and perception. And for this video response, we will be looking at the role of gender in our society. What is gender? Gender is expectation of culture, what it means to be a male or a female. Gender identity is the sense of being a male or a female, which is acquired in childhood, and it is explained by social learning theory. A gender difference is the way we interact with others, which begin to appear at a very young age. Social learning theory proposes that social behavior is learned by observing and imitating other gender-linked behavior. Gender typing suggests that more than imitation is involved. Children gravitate toward what feels right to them. To begin with, I measure my own gender via the BEM sex role inventory, and these are my scores. 41.667 out of 100 for masculinity points, 87.719 out of 100 for feminine points, and 70.833 out of 100 for androgyny neutral. It indicates that I belong to my traditional gender and that I fit in appropriately as a female. BEM sex role inventory, which is known as BSR, was developed in 1971 by Dr. Sandra Lipstick BEM. It characterizes personality as masculine, feminine, androgynous, or undifferentiated. The BSR is based on gender stereotype, so it is actually measuring how well a person fits into their traditional sex role. So the score may say as much as about how our cultural expectations have changed over the last 35 years as it does about our personality. BSR is a widely an instrument used to measure gender role perception. If we say that gender is cultural expectation of what it means to be a male or a female, and BEM sex role inventory measures how well we fit into that traditional role, I won't say that BSR is an adequate measurement. I will say that BSR is an adequate measurement of gender. The value of this scale is that it measures masculinity and femininity gender roles separately, and it is able to yield a measure of androgyny and its adequate psychometric properties. Gender should be measured as a dichotomy variable because generally, by traditional perception of gender role, there is masculinity and femininity only, nothing more. But actually, BSR does more than measurement of dichotomy variables. Gender involves these three elements: gender role, which is masculinity and femininity; gender identity, which is person's private subjective sense of their own sex; and sexual orientation and preferences, which is erotic desire for people of same or different sex. It is important to measure gender when there is need for prioritization, evidence, and advocacy to enable better planning and action, for holding institutions accountable for their commitments on gender equality, and so as to help to stimulate changes through data collection processes. Sex is the division of humans or other living things on the basis of their reproductive function, which could be male or female. It is important to measure sex when there is need to illuminate interaction between identity, behavior, and adverse health outcomes, including sexually transmitted infection.
No.
Information deducted from sexual identity and behavior can be useful for targeting case-based interventions. When such information can be used to guide broader outreach efforts to groups with differing demographic characteristics. There is an area in which gender or sex becomes particularly important, which is in elite sports. Every individual should be opportune to play the elite sport, irrespective of their gender or sex. But if gender is unclear, athletics can be separated by legal sex or their traditional sex, or the declaration of sex of the individual athlete may be accepted and never segregate the sex in sports. The issue of gender identity is not an easy one at all, and it has a lot of challenges attached with it. Part of the challenges is the issue that gender identity may be a technical exercise as well as a political process. Lack of data or previous work on gender identity or on a proposed indicator can lead to dismissal. It is not always easy to know why particular changes have happened. To properly measure the gender and determine what is right and what is fair, the choice of what to measure will be different for different actors. People and government agencies. Government is concerned with monitoring progress for women and men. Developmental agencies might focus on evaluating the impact of their gender programs, while gender inequality activities may be measuring gender inequality or injustice as well. It is right to use testosterone level and chromosome numbers, that is counting the number of chromosomes to detect SRY and Y chromosomes gene, which it is fair to use. While it is fair to use height and number of red blood cells, as it may not be a valid determinant factor for gender measurements. Talking about the role of gender in our society. Gender roles are roles or behavior of women and men that are considered appropriately socially. Traditionally, men are considered as being energetic, physically active, and the primary or sole provider for the family, while women are the caretaker. They do the laundry, they cook meal, and take care of children. In the 20th century, women and men together became the provider, and the use of child care facility came into existence. Women are emotional than men. Gender roles are passed on from generation to generation and reinforced by parents, parent praises and reward. And if considered inappropriate, they can be punished or challenged to change. Boys are encouraged to engage in physical activity, and girls are taught to pay more attention to how they look and the way they present themselves in the society. In modern society, male or female gender-specific identities are irrelevant, and there is no need for traditional gender roles because both women and men are able to carry out necessary tasks, making gender-specific role irrelevant. Masculinity and femininity are social constructs. The gender and sex are words used interchangeably is a misconception. That is actually a big difference. There is actually a big difference between the two of them. I mean, between the gender and sex. There are differences between them. The gender of a person is a social phenomenon. Being a man or woman is different from being a male or a female. The sex of a person is different from their sexual sexuality because of sexual orientation. Identification and practices are socially constructed and have their own specific forms of practice. Sex is an anatomical term which is used to describe the physical characteristics of a person, and gender is a generalization of how men and women should look and behave in the society. So sex is anatomical while gender is social and psychological. Generalization is not actually a biological occurrence and should not be confined to the sex of an individual. Gender roles are influenced by society, but it should be based on individual preference instead. People should not be pressured to conform to society standards. They should be allowed to express themselves freely and should not be seen as if something is wrong with them. Gender roles are sometimes created on the basis of stereotype about gender, and this is oversimplified by understanding male and female and the differences between them. Sometimes individuals base their perception on gender roles on gender stereotypes. Gender stereotypes include exaggeration and erroneous belief on the nature of male and female. For example, a common gender stereotype about male is that they are not emotional, while female are being stereotyped as being irrational or emotional. The gender stereotype is in the process of deconstruction by feminist movements, which is political movements, and at the same time offering alternative vision of gender role, which emphasize on equality between women and men. Finally, gender roles are discussed in terms of individual gender role orientation, which is described as traditionally or non-traditionally. Traditional gender role orientation emphasize the differences between men and women, and there is natural affinity to a particular behavior by each sex. Those who maintain the traditional gender role orientation will not be influenced by the rules and rituals of the generation they were before them, by their parents and grandparents. Individuals with non-traditional gender role orientation will likely believe that an individual behavior is not determined solely by the sex, and they are more likely to behave in the value of egalitarian relationship between men and women and the power of individual to determine what roles they wish to occupy and the extent to which those roles are or will be associated with their sex. Gay and lesbian couples are not likely to organize their lives in gendered pattern of behavior on the basis of a person's sex category. Research has found that lesbian couples are likely to share homework, since obviously there is no delegation of work to any partner in the relationship, and there is no housekeeper role on the basis of their sex. Thank you.